بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
So this is one side that we have to be careful, when we talk about Tawalla and Tabarra. Another is the issue what I call the ghulu in unity of the Ummah. Whereas some people go to the extent of saying that, we have to, just forget about the differences, don't talk about the history, what happened, don't talk about the difference in the theological beliefs that we have. Not only that, they go to the extent of saying that, we should also glorify those who are the enemies of the Ahlulbayt. Sometimes they say in a very academic fashion, what about the good deeds that they had done before they did injustice to the Ahlulbayt? I'll just give you one example. This is where we have a problem. This is extreme. This is what is known as ghulu in the process of unity. That's not what we are talking about. When the ulama talk about unity, this is not what they are describing. Because if you see, for example, in the Islamic sciences, we have hadith, and when we have the science of hadith, one part of it is dealing with rijal. Rijal means those who are narrators of hadith. And so we have books where you have the biography and the categories of the various narrators, whether they are good or bad. These are the books which are mostly put in a alphabetical order. So for example, if you look at the books of Rijal of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, and if you go through the letter Ain, and you look into the index there, Umar ibn Sa'ad. Umar ibn Sa'ad, the commander-in-chief of the Yazidi forces. Now, he was not from the Sahaba. His father was from the Sahaba, Abu Waqqas. But Sa'ad bin Abi Waqqas. But Umar ibn Sa'ad had narrated a hadith from his father. So he is classified as tabi'i, not sahabi. Tabi'i means those who were disciples of the companions of Rasulullah. So under the tabi'i, so this ulama, experts of ilm hadith among Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, they will describe him this way. They will say, وَهُوَ تَابِعِيٌّ. His status is he comes under the generation which is tabi'i, means the generation after the Sahaba of Rasulullah. And then they classify him and they say, وَهُوَ تَابِعِيٌّ ثِقَةٌ. Siqa means trustworthy in narration of hadith. And the sentence continues, وَهُوَ تَابِعِيٌّ ثِقَةٌ وَهُوَ الَّذِي قَتَلَ الْحُسَيْنِ. Just look at that one sentence. That Umar ibn Sa'ad, he is a disciple of the Sahaba, trustworthy in narration, and he is the one who killed Hussein. This is where we have the problem. You look at the character of this person, what he has done, and yet you are saying he is trustworthy. We cannot put this status of siqa and qatil of Hussein, in the same category. And that's where we have this issue when we talk about unity. Sometimes we hear from our own circles, mashallah, people are becoming very generous, to the extent of compromising their own faith, where they say that, so-and-so made a blunder in Saqifa and in the issue of Fadak. These are the words I'm quoting here. But he was a generous person who helped the poor, freed the slaves, and sheltered the widows and the orphans. So you should not only talk about the negativity of what happened by that person in Saqifa and the issue of Fadak, you also should describe his generosity, which took place before. This is where we are saying that, they are forgetting there is a concept in Islam and Quran known as habt, hay, be, ta. habt. Habt means, a simple way of explaining it. Let's forget the example of the tub. The sink in the kitchen. You have this stopper for if you want to fill in the sink. So you put the stopper there, fill the sink with water. Assume that water is your good deeds. You have accumulated so many good deeds, and then you do something which actually works like pulling the stopper. What happens? All the water goes down the drain. This is habt. You might have done many, many generous deeds. But the issue is, what did you do first? What came later on? You might have accumulated quite a lot. Not just, equal to the kitchen sink, maybe a big tub or a swimming pool in your backyard. But then when you do something afterwards where the stopper is pulled, then everything goes down the drain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about it in Surah Hujurat. When He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu, la tarfu aswatakum fawqa sawti nabi. O you who believe, do not raise your voice over the voice of the Prophet. وَلَا تَجْهَرُوا لَهُ بِالْقَوْلِ كَجَهْرِ بَعْضِكُمْ بَعْضٍ. And do not even talk to him the way you talk to one another. Otherwise, what will happen? أَن تَحْبَطْ أَعْمَالُكُمْ habt. Otherwise, your good deeds will go down the drain. This is a simple translation. Will become null and void. وَأَنْتُمْ لَا تَشْعُرُونَ. You wouldn't even realize. You might think you have a very good, credit account with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but by doing one thing, everything became zero. Amir al-Mu'mineen in khutbah number 192, he actually gives the example where he says, فَاعْتَبِرُوا بِمَا كَانَ مِنْ فِعْلِ اللَّهِ بِإِبْلِيسِ. Remember what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did with Iblis. إِذْ أَحْبَطَ عَمَلُهُ الطَّوِيلُ وَجَحْدُهُ الْجَهِيدُ. Where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nullified His very extensive works that He had done and His hard work. وَكَانَ قَدْ عَبَدَ اللَّهِ 6,000 سَنَةً. He had worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 6,000 years. لا يدرى أمن سني الدنيا أم من سني الآخرة. And we don't even know those 6,000 years were according to the counting of the years in the dunya or of those in the akhirah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala nullified all that an kibri sa'atin wahida, because of His arrogance of one moment. When He refused to do the sajda to the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so this is where we have to realize, what was the end? You don't look at the beginning of the person. You look at the aqibat. We have a dua where we say, Allahumma ja'al awaqib umurana khayra. Oh Allah, make the end result of our good deeds a good one. We don't see what happened before, we have to see what happened at the end. And this is where we have to realize that when we talk about the wilayah of the Ahlulbayt, this is something very serious for us. This is the foundation of our madhab. We have Tawheed, Risalat, and then we have the hub and wilayat of the Ahlulbayt alayhi salatu wasalam. Zurara, a very famous companion of the fifth Imam, has a narration from the Imam where he says, ذروة العمر وسنانه ومفتاحه وباب الأشياء ورضا الرحمن الطاعة للإمام بعد معرفته. He says, if you really want to know what is the foundation of reality in Islam, what is the key to success, how do you gain the rida of Rahman, the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it all boils down to one thing, at-ta'atu lil-imam ba'da ma'rifatihi. To obey the Imam after knowing him. So you have the ma'rifat and then you have the obedience to the Imam. Then he says, and this might not be that easy for people to digest sometimes, but this is, we have to realize in Islam, the deeds don't have a value by themselves. it has to be based on something else. One is niyat, for example. And the other is this concept. أَمَّا لَوْ أَنَّ رَجُلًا قَامَ لَيْلُهُ وَصَامَ نَحَارُهُ وَتَصَدَّقَ بِجَمِيعِ مَالِهِ وَحَجَّ جَمِيعَ دَهْرِهِ. If a person prayed for, stood up for the prayers, nafila prayers the entire night, every day, every night. وَصَامَ نَهَارُهُ, and fasted every day. And gave in charity his entire wealth. And did Hajj every year. وَلَمْ يَعْرِفْ وِلَايَةَ وَلِيُّ اللَّهِ فَيُوَالِيهِ وَيَكُونُ جَمِيعَ أَعْمَالِهِ بِدَلَالَتِهِ إِلَيْهِ. But if he doesn't know the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and doesn't conduct his a'mal according to the guidance of the wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, مَا كَانَ لَهُ عَلَى اللَّهِ حَقًّا فِي صَوَابِهِ وَلَا كَانَ مِنْ أَهْلِ الْإِيمَانِ. He would have no right to get the sawab from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Depending on his circumstances, if it was ignorance, Allah might forgive him. But he can't demand that if he doesn't believe in the wilayah of a wali of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and follows according to his guidance. We can't have, two things which are opposites to one another and say, no, they are both, shir and shakar. Sometimes this is what we get. That, all these differences happen, but they are all they love one another and they are with one another. Well, it doesn't really go in with the reality of history.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد